London AIM-listed Avacta is developing novel cancer immunotherapies, combining its two proprietary platforms, Affimer and Precision. Through its Affimer platform, Avacta is supporting the global efforts in combating the COVID-19 pandemic by developing diagnostic reagents for COVID-19 antigen testing. Its shares have risen more than 1,400% from the lows to the highs this year, although are currently off those highs. The value of the company is around about £280 million in terms of market capitalisation. Alastair Smith is Chief Executive. He joins us now on the line from Wetherby. Alastair, good to talk to you. Thanks indeed for taking time out of your very busy, hectic schedule. I want to begin, first of all, if I can, by taking a look at the broad sweep of the company, because much of what's happened in terms of bringing the company up in terms of profile over the last 4 months, of course, has been centred around COVID. But you are not just a one-trick company. Obviously, you do have other things going on. Explain what the spread of the business is.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a really important point, because we're a company with two proprietary technology platforms. And as you said, the recent focus has been around the use of the Affimer platform in developing an antigen test for COVID-19, a rapid antigen test for COVID-19. But the two platforms, the Affimer platform and the Precision platform, are being used across the businesses to develop novel cancer therapies, as you described. And we have a healthy preclinical, and we'll shortly be in the clinic, healthy preclinical pipeline of cancer therapies, as well as partnerships with a range of global partners such as LG, Daewoong, Moderna, and so on. And on the diagnostic side of the business, we're harnessing that Affimer platform. A great example is the COVID-19 antigen test, but we've been working on rapid point of care and infectious disease testing for a couple of years now.
Discuss these cancer therapies in some more detail, the treatment therapies in some more detail, about what it is you're doing and where along the path you are on that side of the technology.
Yeah, I think, well, if I focus on the lead drug program, the one that'll be in the clinic very shortly, very early next year, then that's what we call the Precision platform. And the first drug, what we've done is we've been able to develop a way to, if I can put it very simply, remove the side effects of chemotherapy. So as everyone knows, chemotherapy is an effective cancer treatment, but it almost always has some quite serious side effects which affect the safety and the tolerability for patients, and that ultimately limits the efficacy and the outcomes for patients. And what we've done is we've developed a mechanism to make the chemotherapy inactive when it's given to the patients, and it's only activated in the tumor. So that spares healthy tissues from the exposure to the drug and the damage that causes, and that improves safety and outcomes for patients. So what we can do is we can take a standard chemotherapy and convert it using the technology that we call the Precision platform, and that gives us a new form of the chemotherapy, which is safer and gives better outcomes. The first of those is based on doxorubicin, which is a standard of care for breast, ovarian, and soft tissue sarcomas. And the data that we have in animals looks really, really encouraging, looks very good indeed. So we will take that into the clinic very early next year. And obviously, positive phase 1 data there will not only give us a valuable new cancer therapy in its own right, but it'll allow us to apply that precision therapy to a whole pipeline of other chemotherapies.
That precision therapy, I know, is trademarked, isn't it? What's the competition like in this area, though? Are you up against stiff competition that's trying to attack the same sort of problem from a different angle?
Yes. So the challenge of making chemotherapy safer is one that's been addressed, for a number of years, unfortunately with limited success. And where we have a unique approach is that we have a way, as I said, of activating or releasing the chemotherapy absolutely specifically in the tumor. And it's avoiding that, what we call systemic exposure in the whole body, that is key, and has turned out to be very difficult to achieve. But the data I described in animals shows exactly that with our Precision platform. So we're very, very encouraged by that.
Let's move on and take a look at Affimer. and as I say, the engagement with this global push against the pandemic from COVID-19. Describe what's going on there. As I said, clearly the rise in shares has been pretty much, I guess, on the back of what you're doing in this particular area, because it is such a very, very hot topic. Just explain how you're approaching this and what you're being asked of in terms of what you're offering and what the market needs from you.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely fair to say that the COVID-19 testing requirements and our ability to address those with the AFMA platform has shone a spotlight on the company. There's no doubt of that, and it's helped realise the real value that the company has. So that there are very briefly, there are two types of tests. One that is often referred to as an antibody test, that effectively detects antibodies your immune system raises against the virus. And it takes about 2 weeks for your immune system to do that. So those tests don't identify infected people with the disease in the first 10 days to 2 weeks of the infection. Of course, that's when they're most infectious. So the second type of test, the type of test that we're developing, is called an antigen test. And that, in our case, we're developing a rapid saliva-based test strip, so not the nasopharyngeal swabs, which are so sort of unpleasant to use, but a saliva-based test strip, rather like a pregnancy test in appearance. So one blue line, two blue lines as the result, and should give an indication within minutes whether you have the disease right now or not. And we're developing that product with Cytiva, or formerly known as GE Healthcare. It was acquired quite recently. And that prototype now works. We can detect the coronavirus. So we're in the process of optimizing that to get it to be as sensitive as we possibly can. And that'll just take a couple of weeks. And we're expecting to sign up manufacturing partners very, very soon.
How costly is this process? I mean, you've already spoken about the fact you're moving your first cancer drug into the clinic next year. That's going to be expensive, obviously. How about the COVID testing kit that you're trying to get out there? Is it a very expensive process, and is this really being shouldered by Cytiva?
Development processes are obviously never cheap. We are in a partnership with Cytiva, so those costs are shared. I mean, obviously, the recent fundraisers put us in a strong position in terms of balance sheet to fund our part of that development and manufacturing and regulatory approvals and so on. But the cost of developing these types of tests is certainly not prohibitive.
Let's talk a little bit about the balance sheet. You're talking there about the money you've raised recently. As I said, the company's worth 280 million at current market capitalization. What about the cash burn? What about the strength of the balance sheet to take you through and ultimately succeed in these therapies that you're developing?
Yeah, so we very recently raised 48 million pounds, and that will allow us to, over the next 2.5-3 years, unlock a huge amount of that shareholder value that I've described based on our two proprietary platforms, the AFMA platform and the Precision platform. And just in short, rather than a lot of detail, we're going to be expanding our preclinical drug development pipeline to include more of those precision chemotherapies that we talked about, and also AFMA immunotherapies, as well as taking that first doxorubicin drug through phase 1, which is clearly critical in terms of the Precision platform. And then on the diagnostic side, we're going to be expanding the facilities and teams in that division to cope with the expected demand from the COVID-19 testing, which is clearly expected to be very, very significant. But we'll also continue to grow the existing pipeline of diagnostic tests that we've been developing over the last year or so.
Have you any idea yet the sort of market we're talking about in terms of size? Clearly, it's a global pandemic, so potentially there are a lot of uses or people that are waiting for this sort of testing to happen. Have you got any idea the upside size of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult, and obviously you and your viewers can also do the math, as it were. I think the markets that will be addressable are, first of all, the professional use market, healthcare systems use, the let's call it the corporate market, where businesses are wanting to get their workforce back into work to open up the economy and do that safely. And then there are obviously, self-testing, direct to consumer sales for self-testing at home. So all three of those markets, are potentially very large, and the sort of numbers that we see commentators coming out with of the global demand for 100 million, 200 million tests per month are quite potentially quite reasonable. So then of course we face not just the problem of developing these products, but of course manufacturing and supplying in that volume. So that's a challenge in itself.
Yeah. Just tell me where you see the company going. And I want to ask a question about your strategy here, because some chief executives, of course, they're in it for the long haul. They'll tell you as much. And then others will say they just want an exit strategy. They're just building up to an opportunity to sell on. Where do you fall in terms of that camp? Are you happy to continue your march ahead to developing and processing and public and allowing the company to access these tests and be generative in terms of revenue? Or do you want to sell out?
Yeah, so I think my view is that good companies get bought, and good companies have to make progress, hit milestones, create valuable assets and progress in order to get bought. So we don't. I don't think it's a good idea to focus on an exit like that. Our focus is to drive these novel cancer therapies into the clinic, demonstrate clear clinical benefit. And then those are very valuable assets that can be partnered or drive acquisition of the company. And then on the diagnostic side, clearly, if we deliver the sort of revenues from the COVID-19 test that we've just been suggesting might be possible, then the company has an extremely valuable revenue source. So I think it would be fair to say that the management team and the board in Avacta focus on key milestones and hitting those key milestones rather than necessarily on any particular exit strategy.
One final question, and I'd like to accompany this with a look at the share price chart if I can. Currently trading 113 pence. I said the company's worth 280 million sterling. And this is the rise I was talking about at the beginning, this 1,400% rise that we've seen. As I said, it is off the highs. What is this pricing in at these levels, Alastair? Do you have an idea? As I said, you're clearly a company with pre-revenue at the moment. Very difficult, I guess, to assess the future. Do you find it difficult to deal with share prices when it rises like this as a CEO?
Well, I think also we have to understand how we have two elements here. We have a diagnostic company which is revenue generating and will be profitable, and we have a biotech developing drugs, and those two, those two types of activities are valued very differently, of course. So the fact that we have a little bit of a hybrid here, certainly right now we have a hybrid model. So it's very difficult, I think, to value that within a single method. So my view is that if you look at the long-term and sustainable shareholder value that's locked up in Avacta from the pipeline we have and the platforms that we have, the current share price is more than substantiated by that. But I entirely accept that it's the COVID-19 focus that's really made the market, I guess, recognize that and recognize it in particular for the infectious disease testing application.
Okay, well, look, we look forward to more news come September or come later in the year, at least for the COVID-19 diagnostic testing, and of course next year that pipeline for the cancer drug as well. But Alastair, look, thank you so much indeed for taking some time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. That's Alastair Smith. He's the Chief Executive of Avacta.